Hi, my name's Anita Shepik, and I'm from Lincoln, California. And I'm here at the Class A driving school today to basically learn how to drive safely. And I would like to get the correct license, so I'm not driving illegally.
My name is Becky Larcher, and I've owned a living quarters for over 20 years now, and I guess it's time to drive it legally so I don't get in trouble.
Okay, but prior to this change in the laws, you were legal to drive that rig before.
Yes.
So you have a lot of experience already pulling this trailer.
My understanding is actually it's been a law in this state, but they haven't been enforcing it.
Okay.
So now California is enforcing it. That's what we learned today.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
Yes,
so
that's
we've
correct.
been driving around all these years with
Many
our
years.
rose-colored glasses on, and everything's groovy.
It's not a California law, it's a federal law.
So tell us a little bit about your experience in presenting these hotshot driving clinics for equestrians.
Well, it started out, I drive a big rig for a living, and so I have a Class A license for 37 years, and then I'm also an equestrian, so I have horses, and all my horse friends are finding out that in the state of California and in more states, they are, well, apparently it's always been a law, but because the rigs are getting bigger and bigger, the jurisdiction is getting into the Class A range like big rigs. So they were inquiring me, since I have a license, what do I do? How do I get my license? And so I helped my friends get their Class A license that just had big horse trailers, and it kind of went from there.
So like the trailers getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so has the need arrived to learn about what to do with these larger rigs. So what is it exactly that's the problem with getting a larger rig? Why do the state of California and other states want us to have a different classification of license?
Well, it's basically weight rated, so the heavier the rig, the more safety issues that come into play with following distance and stopping distance, and even more so with horses because it's a dynamic load and very top heavy. So they should have some extra skills and be in a different class with the DMV. So these gooseneck trailers aren't anything new. The law in the California Vehicle Code has been there forever, but one in maybe 20 or 30 was a gooseneck trailer, and certainly not a living quarters maybe 20, 25 years ago. Now it's literally 9 out of 10. They're all gone that way. So the law isn't anything new, but now they're having to enforce it because they can't look the other way with all these trailers getting bigger and bigger with people driving on a Class C, which is an automobile license. And really, big rigs weigh a lot, and these are close to those weight ranges. They do need some extra training.
We did look at this trailer before we started videoing, and the length of this trailer is well over 20 feet, just the body itself, not including the gooseneck. And the gross vehicle weight rating of this trailer was nearly 19,000 pounds loaded with a pop-out living quarter 3-horse trailer. So that's a lot of weight pushing your truck. What can you tell us a little bit too, not just in getting the licensing because of the length of the truck, but what do we need in terms of a tow vehicle so that we're safe pulling a trailer that's going to be 20,000 pounds behind us?
Yeah, you have to make sure when you buy your truck that you check if you're going to be hauling loads like this or ever plan to, that it is rated in the gross vehicle combined weight rating for the truck. The manufacturer, usually in the manual, sometimes you can find it online. Ask the dealer to find out what the combined weight rating for the truck is, which would mean the truck and its trailer combined, because its braking system, its engine, its suspension in the back where the tongue weight is, all need to be rated for the trailer that you're pulling. A lot of people are getting Jake brakes and everything like big rigs now because these trailers are getting so big.
Yeah, a lot of the pickups nowadays come with those standard as some type of engine brake, but we have to learn how to use an engine brake too, because
Exactly.
It's not that you just turn the engine brake on and it'll stop the truck for you and you can, check your Facebook page while you're driving. There's more to it than that. What about turning radius? I mean, what do people need to think about when they turn a large vehicle like this? What kind of things are they going to run into that they may not be used to if they're in a smaller rig?
First of all, the longer the rig, the more it's going to cheat. We call it cheating when it's a gooseneck or a fifth wheel. And that means that the attachment points in the bed, the trailer won't track where the truck goes. So you really need to be careful and practice when you first get it with your turns. Bumper pulls will generally follow where the truck goes, and it's not so much of an issue. And backing, to get your Class A license, they're going to require most all the states have the same licensing requirement of backing skills on a cone course, and you have to demonstrate before you even get legal that you can maneuver it backwards, and that cheating comes into play there. So it takes a lot of practice. So generally, if you're doing it right and you're legal, you're going to have some practice. It's not like a bumper pull.
Yeah, because if you go around the corner tight enough, you end up just looking at the side of your trailer, right?
Exactly. When you're backing, you're blind for a percentage of that time on the maneuver. Because the minute the articulated vehicle bends, your mirrors now aren't looking down the sides of the trailer anymore. One's looking out in space and one's looking at the side of the trailer. So it's a lot of dead reckoning and practice. Yeah, that's what we do, is teach them how to pass the DMV when they're interested in getting a trailer, gain those skills. And a lot of safety, like we said, with weight, stopping distance. Yeah.
And learning, I guess, too, how to load your rig is really important as well, because it's easy to get your weight too far in one direction or the other and affect how the vehicle steers. I had a pickup years ago that, with 3 horses in the back and all our gear to go to an endurance ride, the front end of that truck would float. And it was very, very frightening to drive it, even though it had plenty of engine power and it had plenty of stopping power once you got it going. But boy, when that front end is up there floating like that and you're like this with the wheel, it's pretty frightening to think about. How am I going to turn this vehicle if there's an emergency, or just safely navigate these roads? You would hit a bump and the whole front end of the truck would just float all over the place, and it was very frightening. So there's a lot to consider if you decide, okay, this is it. I've reached that point in my life. I want that living quarter trailer. I'm tired of sleeping outside in tents and using porta potties, and I want to go big or go home. There's more to it than just signing the paperwork to purchase.
Yeah, we definitely talk about in the class about weight distribution, because most trailers have multiple stalls. And if you look at, like, this one's a 3-horse, so the middle stall, generally the horse will be over the axles. It's like a teeter-totter. And then beyond that, you're balancing that load. And you want more weight up front than you do in the back. If you have more weight behind the axles, you're going to fishtail, and more so in bumper pulls, but goosenecks will do it too. And that's catastrophic sometimes.
So this big storage unit up on top, if I put water tanks up there and a half a ton of hay and 3 horses in here, but I'm planning to stay in a hotel and there's nothing in the front, I've kind of got my rig out of balance.
That's when it becomes dangerous, and that's what we educate people about in the class when you're loading for that trip. Because a lot of people, I say, if you don't have 3 horses, you only have 1 or 2, which stalls do you put them in? And generally everybody puts them in the second and the third, because they use the front stall because it's the one with the escape door for some gear, and it's not as heavy as the horse. So you're ending up putting your heaviest load behind the axle when you put your gear in that stall number 1 with the stud wall. That's a common problem, and if you do that, and you want to do that because you like using that stall, make sure you put some weight up front. The further forward you go, like a teeter-totter, up in the bed, way up in the nose, your cooler with your ice and whatever you got that's heavy, try and get it up there. Yeah, and be very careful if you buy a living quarter trailer that was converted, not manufactured that way, because the way the manufacturers balance that load is by placing the axles. You know, they added a living quarters, and it weighs a certain amount, the appliances and things in it. So they take that into consideration, they take the horses into consideration, where the tack room is, and they place the axles as a pivot point. So if you get a trailer that wasn't a living quarters and that pivot point is in one place, and then you add a bunch of weight by having it coach built, or a personal guy adds a living quarters, you've changed that whole thing and it could become unsafe.
Oh,
so you really need to be careful about that too.
So going back to talking about making the rig tail heavy, so you talk about how it'll make the truck float a little bit, fishtail, and not handle properly, which makes it unsafe. What happens with the braking? If I am keeping my weight to the back, because most horse trailers, the back axle is the only braking axle. So if I've got the weight too far back and the trailer's sort of sitting down in the back too much, what does that do with the braking on this? Does it affect it at all?
Actually, the lighter you are, the less braking you have.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be a bad thing. The trailer itself is pretty heavy, but for instance, in a big rig with a big, van trailer that's 53 feet long for a tractor trailer, they're designed to carry 80,000 pounds, but when you don't have any, they're literally made of like a little fiberboard. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They actually flutter when they're empty in the wind. That when they're empty, they take twice as long to stop, because gravity is your friend. Gravity is what's pushing you into the pavement for traction. And if you don't have that, you'll skid quicker. And so the heavier you are, the safer you are as far as braking components go.
That's a really interesting point, because when we often drive these trailers in the snow and in the rain and in the ice, in the fog, where the pavement is still wet, and it would be easy to assume, well, my trailer's empty and I'm driving down to wherever to go get loaded up with my horses and this and that and the other thing. And lo and behold, this thing is much more unstable than when it's loaded, even when the road is wet. And a trailer doesn't have the ability to create its own traction, right? It can only follow what's
forward.
Yeah, and so you can't get that. You don't get that posi track type of thing. You get an all-wheel drive car or something like that.
Right.
So it can come around on you. What do they call that when the trailer comes around on you?
A jackknife. We talk a lot about that too, because a skid can happen in multiple ways. A blowout, if you get a blowout, which actually are pretty common in trailers because people don't understand. Underinflation of your tires will cause a blowout, not overinflation, so put air in your tires. If you have a recommended number in the vehicle door or on the sidewall, and you go, well, but I am only carrying one horse, so I'll go a little under that. No, just put it at the max. You're always safer, because when you make the tires bulge, that is causing the damage that causes a blowout. You want them vertical on a trailer tire, as these are. You don't see a bulge like a radial tire. So underinflation, age, the tires nowadays, just in the last 10 years, nothing like they were just a little while ago because of the quality with, I don't know if it's overseas or if the standards have gotten different, but the rubber ages and comes apart much quicker. And even if they're not being used, you got all the tread in the world typically on a trailer, because you don't drive it like your car. It's age, and there is a date on all tires. It's the law to ask your tire guy how to read that. Even if you buy new tires on sale, they'll be a year or two old sometimes because they're on sale. They're trying to clear out their old stock, and you only have about 5 years for the lifespan of tires now. 5-6 is pushing it for a blowout. So that could be catastrophic. Check your tires, make sure they're inflated. That will cause, if you have a blowout on the front, on the tow vehicle, because that applies to your truck too, your trailer, whenever anything slows down in a hurry, the trailer, being a combination vehicle, wants to pass it, because it's in its way. This is slowing down and the trailer wants to pass it. That's called jackknifing. So if a blowout up here impedes the forward movement, the trailer will want to come around. If you stab your brakes in a panic of an accident, the trailer will want to come around and pass the tow vehicle then too.
Even though this has its own braking system, it's still...
It'll go into a skid, and the skid has no traction. Yeah. Once you've started to skid, the brakes aren't working anymore because the wheels aren't rolling. And the brakes, once they're locked up, there's no braking effect anymore. So what we teach people is when you have a blowout, when you're in a skid, the last thing you want to do is apply the brakes. The last thing you even want to do is let off the throttle, because that's still having the same effect of slowing the tow vehicle down and trailer wanting to pass you. You want to actually accelerate and feather the throttle a little bit. And when you get that tow vehicle to go out front, it'll pull your trailer around and you can gain control. And that's why ABS was designed, because it's applying the brake but letting it off, applying the brake. Because if you stab the brakes, once they lock up, you have no control.
Yeah.
So feathering the throttle, then apply the brake, and it might come around again, feather the throttle, bring it back straight, and then pump the brakes and come to a slow stop in an emergency.
And we see a lot of horse trailers on the side of the road with blown tires.
Yep.
I think it's very easy to assume that, well, they look great.
They look great.
Let's go. And it's not really true when that happens. So if I need to buy new tires, do I need to buy a trailer tire, or can I put a car tire on this and save some money?
It's not uncommon for people to get SUV tires or pickup tires to get on their trailer because they're on sale more often because they're more common. But you don't want those. You want a trailer tire. It's a different dynamic because it doesn't have the suspension of canter and camber that the tow vehicle has. It's a rigid axle, and it's different. And it has to have a more vertical sidewall. If you put those others, those are the ones that blow out. They have a more round sidewall like a radial, and that will break down, and that's why a blowout happens.
Because when the trailer goes around, doesn't it kind of lean a little bit, and it could, if the sidewall is not sturdy enough, then it will end up actually putting the sidewall onto the surface of the ground.
Exactly. What happens is there's layers in a tire, metal and rubber, and it's all layered in there. You see it when you see them come apart on the highway, the pieces. It comes apart in layers. Those layers, like if you think of this being two layers, if it's straight and rigid, they're glued together. If it's bent, one has to give.
Oh, interesting.
So when you bend it and the sidewall is curved, it's called extruding. The rubber is now separated inside the tire where you can't see it, but those layers have now caused stress in there that they aren't adhered like they should be, and then it'll blow out.
And so one other thing to ask about trailer tires, although, hopefully we'll be helping and encouraging people to buy new trailers, but a lot of people buy new used or private party sales. So if I buy this trailer, for example, and I go, well, the tires are kind of ratty and raggedy and everything else. I really can't afford to buy 4 tires plus the spare. So I'll just put new tires on one axle. Am I setting myself up for a problem if I do that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but anytime you change the dynamic of the two axles, they should be equal. You want them to be your pivot point weight distribution. If you're high in the front, that's another thing, is a lot of trailers, you want to make sure the trucks are getting taller and taller and taller. And a lot of the trailers are traveling down the road like this. That's putting more weight on your back axle. The downside of that is a lot of axles get bent that way because it creates friction and heat, and then they'll bend. So you want it level, and you want them sharing the load, and if you change the tread pattern and the life of the tire, you're going to upset that balance.
Okay. So it could possibly wear out the new tire or even trash the old tire if they're kind of operating different from each other then.
And the braking, if you do have four-wheel brakes, are going to brake better on the good one and lock up on the other one because they're going to be applied equally, but the rubber isn't the same. And then you only have 2 tires. You have half the braking if you do have. A lot of the new ones all have four-wheel.
The bigger, heavier ones. Probably a trailer as heavy as this probably got 4-wheel braking on it. Yeah. At least it should. Okay, Dawn, well, I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
And again, Dawn does Hotshot Driving Clinics. You can go to Facebook to sign up for those. She says they fill up really fast, 15 minutes, and
Yeah, we've been
have to wait for the
posting.
next one. But she does do these in Northern California, and we're going to be putting this video out pretty soon on Horse TV Global, so you'll be able to watch it there and get that information there. And I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
And have fun with your class tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion regarding the licensing and the laws as far as what state you're in and what their requirements are. Everything varies a little bit depending on where you are. So you want to make sure before you drive these vehicles that you have the appropriate license for your state. Once you have the appropriate license for your own state, then you are appropriately licensed to go into other states, because if they do pull you over, they're going to make the determination if you're properly licensed based on where your rig is registered.
Correct. And don't call your local CHP office because they are not knowledgeable. And borderline with the CHP scales, because I actually called them a few months ago. They told me I was fine with what the trailer I was driving. I got a 3 horse with a 9-foot short wall. They said, you're fine. Well, then he called me back 2 days later and said, oh, actually, my apologies. You're not. You need a Class A.
Well, thank you for being here, and I'm glad that
you.
you've signed up and you're going to get all this taken care of, and that's a great weight off
Me
your
too.
shoulders. Yeah,
Here
far
we go.
out.
Thank
Why
you.
are you here, Nicole?
I'm here because I wanted to I've already got my permit, but obviously similar to the other people, like to be driving legally with my gooseneck trailer, because apparently all of us have been illegally driving with this federal law that the state now is enforcing, actually stricter than the feds, which they can do. They can be stricter, but not more lenient. That's my understanding. And so I wanted to come for I feel like I can do the driving part, the skills test, the road driving confidently. I'm a really good driver actually with my trailer. But the pre-trip inspection really worries me. And so
interesting, yeah.
the details of that and the terminology and the order, basically memorizing and knowing all the things, I think actually is valuable information, but I actually wanted to be walked through it and coached. And I feel like this Hotshots Driving School is a good coaching program, so that's why I'm here today.
Super. And how big is your rig?
So I used to have a really big living quarter that was like 14-foot short wall with 3 horse, but I recently sold it because we will upgrade to a newer trailer that's nicer and probably heavier. But right now my current trailer's GVWR is around 14,000 and my truck is 10. So I still have to have a Class A, but to do the full Class A, I'm going to actually use a heavier trailer so that I'm over the 26,001 pounds, so I can get my full-blown, they call it a real Class A, not a light duty, so that down the road, if we purchase a bigger trailer again, I'm legal. Or if I'm driving a friend's rig, which happens often, when you carpool to events, we could drive each other's vehicles and be legal and safe.
So the gross vehicle weight rating is what the GVWR is, and that's the thing that we're really looking at, is not only the GVWR, gross vehicle weight rating for the trailer, but the truck as well, and then what is that combined weight.
Yes.
That's where the wrinkle is.
Yes.
Trying to make sure that people are safe driving these down the road. And of course, we're all horse owners. We love our horses. They're our family. We don't want anything to happen to them. So if it's a little bit inconvenience for us to do these kinds of things and take these steps to be legal, because nobody likes a ticket, but in reality, we want to be safe because, our family's back there.
Yeah.
And we want to know that we're prepared to take care of that and to handle what we're taking down the road and keep other people on the road safe that are around us as well.
And I believe the insurance companies, at least in the state of California, are also paying attention to this enforcement of the law, because they're kind of putting out memos, or if you call your agent, if you don't have the proper license and you happen to be involved in an accident, whether it was your fault or not, it could be used against you, because they wouldn't cover you if you don't have the proper license. So that's a really
good
important
point.
point.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, the insurance thing is, I have a discount on my insurance because I still have a Class A, had it for decades, and with no tickets or anything or accidents, and so I have benefited from that because I've had it for such a long time. But that's a really good point, because insurance is always looking for a reason why they don't have to pay for something that's happened. Well, thank you, and I'm glad to see you're here. Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Why are you here?
I am here originally because we were just kicking tires on living quarters, and then we actually have been going to some rides lately where we realized a living quarter would be nicer than the cab over camper that we have. And then with this Hotshot class, I've just learned today that there is an overweight configuration I have with our motorhome. We have a Class A motorhome. Never would have thought this was in that category, but its GVWR is just over 18.
Okay.
And my little 2-horse bumper pull is just over 8. So when you combine those, the total combined puts us over the 26.
Oh, wow.
And I've been doing that for years.
Sure.
Going everywhere, all over California, into showing or endurance rides and everything. So, and there's just been so much confusion over the new enforcements that they're doing. That I was just completely confused, and it really clarified things today. This made it very simple.
Oh, good.
And I'm a fan of it because it's just puts a lot more safer people behind the wheel with these larger rigs and the livestock and everything. So.
And have you done your written test already?
No, this is all new.
All new.
I just had no idea. So as of today, I have to do it, whereas before I was like, this should just be something I should look into.
Okay.
And now I need to.
Yeah, it's a funny story. When I did my Class A license, I was 19 working at a cattle ranch, so everybody had to have a Class A license because everybody had to be able to drive the semi-truck, whether it was the flatbed or the doubles or what have you. And so the pre-trip wasn't so bad back in those days. It was pretty simple. Here's the air button, this releases my brakes, this is the light that goes off if I pump on the brakes and let all the air out, here's my handbrake, blah, 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 that turn signal works, this turn signal works, here's my lap belt, because it was before they had, it was an old truck. Anyway, and so the gal that was giving me the test was really friendly and chit-chatting and everything else. So we leave DMV and we're yik-yakking and all that, and so we go down and I do the backing up and I back around the cones and do all this really cool maneuvers, and I'm thinking, oh, I got this, I'm so good. And so we're laughing and carrying on, and I roll a stop sign. Because there was nobody coming, and we were just chatting, just going away, gabbing away. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, you failed the test. And I was like, oh. So I had to come back the next week. Actually, I had to wait 2 weeks. You had to wait 2 weeks if you fail the test. So I had to come back 2 weeks later, and so I had the same gal. We went through the whole routine, and we were still yakking it up and everything else. And when we got to the stop sign, she's like, Erin, and I go, I know. And I was like, stop, wait 3 seconds, look, and then turn. Then I passed it. But my boss was kind of upset because he had me all set to go to haul cows to Oregon the next day, and I was like, oh, so I failed because I rolled a stop sign. So you never know. She might have set me up. It's possible.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And enjoy your class.
I'm loving it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
So I need to...
My daughter's a barrel racer, and we travel a lot across country, a lot to Texas and Oklahoma. And with a lot of miles we put on, I want to make sure that I'm properly licensed, and I'm looking forward to getting through the tests and the written test and the driving test. And once I'm complete, I'm going to be very happy.
Very good. And I assume you have like a pretty good sized gooseneck trailer that you're pulling?
Yes, yeah. We have a large trailer about 30 feet long, and I pull it with a Ram dually truck.
Okay. And is it a 3-horse, 4-horse?
It's a 4-horse.
Okay. And what size living quarter is in front of that trailer?
Oh, I believe I have a 10-foot short wall.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
So
8 by 10.
Pretty good size
Pretty
rig.
good size with a pop out. That's pretty
Okay.
heavy.
Can you hear the train going by? So this lady's driving a train. I have a train at home too. So I know I have a Class A license still. Thank God. I kept that since I was 19. But anyway, yeah. So good. Super. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.